Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. You know it's a Wednesday because you get to hear the smooth, soothing sounds of this voice. There's no ASMR like it. You just get to hear me. Joining us today, and we're going to be talking about what is media minimalism. I find this absolutely fascinating what this person is doing. So we're going to be talking about that. Okay, well, change that. We're going to talk to this person. I have no idea where he's even at. He's going to have to tell us where he's at in the world. It could be a completely covert operation. That might be why I don't know, because he doesn't want everyone to know what his completely covert operation here is. So, joining us from parts unknown, maybe you'll tell me in a minute. Joining us from parts unknown, somewhere in the world, in an undisclosed location, kept secret from everyone, because you don't need to know what he knows until he puts it on your phone. It's Mr. Kira Shishkin.
Hi, Sean. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, brother. So where are you?
I'm in California right now. I'm in Los Angeles.
Khalifa.
But I am doing a lot of travel these days. So I just came back from Tokyo and I'm on the way to London tonight. So you've caught me in a very American moment right now, but not
In a
always.
very American moment. Tell me, okay, so you got me. We were going to do some house cleaning first, but I got to know, what's a very American moment? Tell me what that is.
Well, just me being in California as
Oh,
opposed to Tokyo or London.
gotcha. Understood. Now that makes sense to me. So listen, folks, we're going to be talking about what is media minimalism. If you want to know, get a jump start on everybody else, you can check out the banner that's rolling across www.informed.now. You can see what Kira's got going on, get a little bit of early information on that. But let's take care of some house cleaning. As always, folks, we got the big board over my right shoulder. That's for Sticker and a Cause. You have something you believe in, something you think other people should know about. I don't care what it is. Reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. Maybe Kira will put it on his thing and you can reach out through him. Who knows how this is going to happen? Our website is theabovethebarpodcast.com and our email is theabovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what you got going on. I'll tell you where to send that sticker. We'll put it up for everybody in the world to see. They'll know what you got going on. And this is how we all grow, folks. This is how we support each other. Do you have an informed.now sticker, Kira? Do you have one?
Well, what do you mean by a sticker?
A sticker. A sticker.
Oh, yeah.
I need a sticker. Send me a sticker.
It's on the way to you.
All right, folks. And we got to talk about the people that pay the bills around here, and that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Cooksaki, Schoharie, goodness gracious, Clifton Park and Delmar, all around the capital region. Budget Blinds is North America's largest custom window treatment company. They handle everything from blinds, shades, shutters, tint. They do home automation. And if you're around any of those first locations I mentioned, Hudson, East Greenbush, Schoharie, Cooksaki, Delmar, or Clifton Park, they're running a sale this month of 25% off all custom window or all motorized window treatments. So make sure you're reaching out and letting them know. And as always, folks, if you tell them that you're there to belly up to the bar, they're going to give you an additional 5% off your entire order. So make sure you're reaching out to your local Budget Blinds, but especially here in the capital region, reaching out to Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Cooksaki, Schoharie. Get that all taken care of. Delmar and Clifton Park. All right, there, Kira. All the stuff is done. Oh, look, Cody's already here. Hello, Miss Cody. How are you? I think what you do would be right up Miss Cody's alley here with your process. But I want to get back in here and look at my notes for a moment here. So you're the founder and CEO of informed.now, the number one, and I think I know what this is, but I don't think a lot of people understand, news-by-SMS service. So I used to have an app called News 360. Have you ever heard of that?
No, is that still around?
It's not, unfortunately, and I loved it because it was the only news that I had ever seen where if there was a story, and say it was in Tupelo, Mississippi, just for somewhere arbitrary, there might only be three sources of news for that, but I could see all three sources. But if it was a story that was, you know, like that was out of New York City, that was a big story, there might be 75 news outlets for that. And I could check what all 75 of them said about that story and bounce their information off of each other to see what was real and what wasn't. Tell everybody a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish here with an SMS news service. And for those who don't know what SMS, folks, that just means it's a text message that comes to your phone with some sort of a news article. What's our goals here?
Totally. I'm glad you brought that up because I think, we should get into this later on around, you know, trying to get the truth to people through exposing them to many different perspectives and many different sources. We actually do something that's a lot more minimal than that. We don't believe in reading the news twice or reading the news 75 times because most folks don't have the time. But we do believe in uh, giving people the tools, the facts to let them make up their own mind, which the traditional legacy news media doesn't do. Right? It doesn't matter if you're reading from the Fox News part of the world or from the CNN, CNBC part of the world, it doesn't really matter. Every sort of news outlet today is on a mission to grab your attention and then mislead you in some capacity by giving you a narrative that you're already subscribed to, that you're already very much, sure of, and just feed into your echo chamber that you've created for yourself. I think we're definitely living in an era of echo chambers. And so
100%.
there's a lot of things wrong with legacy news media. We can kind of hit them one by one. But with the informed.now project, what we're trying to do, what we're actively doing, is giving a new habit and a new tool for reading news to readers who are tired of the structural sensationalism, the ceaseless solicitation, and the just unacceptable bias that exists in the legacy news media world.
So I love that you're going after this bias in the news. How do you break that mindset? Because in my world, I'm in a lot of homes, and you can kind of gauge the temperature in the room by what's playing on the TV. Is it, like I'm a CBS guy. I love 60 Minutes. I've always enjoyed that. I've enjoyed those articles, but you know, I'm probably in that minority of still watching typical local news. Most people are very like Fox, MSNBC. There was that one at Epic News. I don't even know if that one's around still or not. That thing was so far galvanized in one way. I've never seen anything like it. How do you break people out of that mold, though?
Yeah. I mean, it's helpful to recognize like what exactly is wrong with news because there are so many things. It's kind of a little bit disorienting. It's worth painting the picture of, why is it messed up? And it's very simple. When is the last time you paid for news? Most people don't pay for news. It's not because news is free. It's actually very difficult to report. It's very difficult to write. It's very difficult to bring that information to people. The reason it's free is because you're not a customer. You are the product of news, and the customer is the advertiser that sponsors these news, right? And it's a pretty fundamental difference. And most people, it's very obvious in front of our face, but most people don't realize that if you're not paying for something, especially something like expensive laborful media, it's not because it's free. It's because you're the product in this process.
Wow.
And the way news media works is very literally it's primarily an ad model where you're fed news for free. In fact, it's news that already reassures your own echo chamber. You're given that sort of narrative that you are likely to agree with. Um, and then your eyeballs and your attention and your behavior, even online, the cookie privacy invasion is sold to advertisers so that you can click on advertisements, so that you can, essentially be sold to in different and more effective ways. And the news industry is run on advertiser incentives. What they care about is what the industry is optimizing for. And what do they care about? They care about hijacking your attention at any cost, through clickbait, through rage bait, through structural sensationalism. and then keeping it hostage for as long as possible, right? So longer articles, verbosity, tons of little pop-up solicitations playing, automatic video players in the background, not to mention all the actual literal advertisements that exist in the reading pane. And so to me, when I look at this reality, I'm not seeing the attention economy. That was 10 years ago. I'm seeing attention terrorism that has become so commonplace that we
Tell me
all
what you
just,
mean about that. What do you mean by attention terrorism? That's an interesting term. I like it.
well, if our attention at scale is being hijacked and then held hostage against our will, is that not attention terrorism?
That's a great way of looking at it. Absolutely. Okay. Don't start Cody because she's already threw something at me because I'm big into like trying to understand. You know what MK Ultra is?
Is that a
Oh,
conspiracy?
you know what? MK Ultra?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm familiar.
Do you know what the movie The Manchurian Candidate is?
No.
Oh, listen, you're making me feel old right now, Kira. I'm already impressed by you, like with founding multiple companies and the crypto mining and all the other stuff and academic publishing and all that. So, oh gosh, all right, left turn for a minute, folks. Do you ever notice that like movies in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the villains were always trying to brainwash people, and this guy was a killer because he was brainwashed? You ever notice that? Well, that comes from uh, information that we received that Russians were actually working on this idea of creating assassins that were brainwashed people. So the US actually worked on a program called MK Ultra that took that same idea and forced it down, finding a way to use drugs and other things to mind control and manipulate people to become assassins and stuff like that. I don't want to get into it, but it's very interesting what you're throwing out there to me. I love this idea that media is trying to brainwash people into staying in that lane and being terrorized. How are you guys different though? That's what I'm really interested in because I love the idea that like if I only wanted news that was associated with the capital region of New York, would that could I do that through you?
And so it's a lot of questions in one, and I think
I
they're
know.
all really important and worth answering. You know, when we think about what's wrong with media, we can get into the specifics of, you know, for example, why does this exist? And I've touched on this briefly is because of the financial incentives that exist, right? And I think it's worth sort of painting that picture to at least answer the first part of your question. Where the legacy news media industry has got so many things broken with it that it's at this point, right? We can just name three buckets of them, right? It's the structural sensationalism, the fact that everything is clickbait these days. The second one is that there is a bias and an agenda that is inevitable, that is everywhere, that is just like you can't get rid of it. And three is the fact that there's so many solicitations. You're being asked to do all these things: buy the car, get the insurance, read this other article. You're being constantly prompted, right? Those are like the main three pillars of how messed up news media is. When you look at maybe the why, and you're clicking into why is that the case, I mentioned one of them is the advertiser incentives that govern the industry. I would say two is because the social media ecosystem that is sort of the governing force of everything now is reinforcing those incentives even further, because right now it rewards not accuracy, not precision, not credibility, but it rewards sensationalism. It rewards emotional triggering, and advertising incentives that have been in place for decades, and now combined with the power of social media, has made news such that people sort of react in two ways. Either they fully disengage and they're like, I can't deal with this shit. Like, I don't want to read this. I can't do it. It's too much. And you can't blame them because it really is a very toxic industry. It's a very toxic experience. And the second flavor is kind of, you were hinting at that News 360, is people who are so committed to like, hey, I need to know what's going on, either for my job or for my family, or for my status as an immigrant, or for my whatever it is that makes you need to read news, I can't plug out. But then these people are forced to go through exorbitant pains of reading news twice, three times, four times, just to figure out what's going on. They got to read the right side and the left side, the side up, the side down, and now they're spending multiple hours a day just doing the research of figuring out the base facts. I mean, both of these outcomes are extremely terrible, right? As one is isolation, self-disenfranchisement, and full living under a rock, and the other, right, is so overwhelmed and so exhausted by the process that it dominates your life in ways that most people aren't able to afford.
We're not built for it. Grab your charger. Hurry up. Grab your charger so you don't. I'm good
Yeah,
with
me
it.
too. I
I'll
need to
talk.
wait for a second.
Grab your charger and I'll talk for a minute. I'm really good at it. But I think you're absolutely right, Cody. As Kira goes to grab his charger real quick, but I think you're absolutely right. I don't think we were meant to know everything all at once. We're just not. We don't have that processing system as human beings to take all that information on. That's why when people talk about ADD, they don't understand that that's actually. I learned this actually from a board. Too many double, triple board certified psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever the one with the PhD is, and explained to me that ADD was actually an important thing of Captain Caveman times for humans to be able to do, which was see a bunch of targets, pick one, hyper focus on it, and move forward. Now that we're bombarded all day with, I can grab my phone and I can doom scroll and never accomplish anything. I can't tell you how many times I've been on my phone. It's 9:30. I don't have anything else going on. I'll start doom scrolling and I realize it's 10:30 now and I've not accomplished anything. It actually bothers me as a person. So that then getting back into this for a second, and look, folks, if you're interested in the news three, or gosh, I almost said news 360 because we were talking about it. If you're interested in informed.now, you can actually just go right onto the website and just it gives you a quick little thing about what informed is. Is it free to start? There's a button there that you can click to get it started. It's got some information about just different things on here, and you can jump right into it and start getting involved in it now, and start getting some news. My question for you though is, how do you get people to understand that you're not after that compartmentalized news like we were just talking about? Because I think that's hard for people to understand, is like when you tell someone, well, I'm a different kind of news, I'm going to tell you the truth. Well, every single one of them says that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, no,
it's
don't bother
a
me, Nate.
it's a hard claim to make for people who have never seen pure news, right? When most news in America isn't actually news, it's news commentary, right? When you walk into a bar and there's a talking head on TV, you may think you're consuming news. You're not. You're consuming a pundit, giving you a story about news, a discussion of news, a commentary around news. So the everyday American has actually, it sounds crazy, and I don't hope I don't hope it doesn't sound condescending, but unfortunately, it's a reality that the everyday American has actually never seen news. They've only seen news commentary.
What do
And
you mean? Tell me what you mean
well,
by that.
specifically, that difference is news is the facts of what happened, where did it happen, when did it happen, what is the immediate context that you need to know to understand what it is or understand its impact. That's news. But news commentary is the talking head that is telling you how to feel, how to think, using facial expressions, using word choice, using selective evidence to paint a story of how amazing Trump is or how terrible Trump is, depending on what the issue is, how amazing tariffs are, how terrible tariffs are. It doesn't matter, whatever channel you're plugged into, they're telling you what to think, how to feel about a certain event. And there isn't really pure news in America at a mass scale. It's all news discussion. It's all news commentary. And so, we've painted this picture of all things that are wrong. I would love to, share more, and I know your questions are heading there too, as to like how do we actually, make the difference? Like, what is it
Yeah,
about
how?
that is objective and that is impartial, that is neutral, and that is non-overwhelming, non-draining, and non-suggestive. And it's actually quite, I think a lot of people would find it quite refreshing instead of reading a article. It really could be from any of the big names. You can mention CBS. I actually think they're one of the better ones. They manage neutrality better than most. But when you look at any sort of mass channel news service, just pick any radio, TV, online station. What that is not news. It's long articles that are telling you a story, right? And they're bringing evidence of a certain kind, a sort of selection. So we don't do that. What we do is much more obvious, fundamental, and minimal. We do the process of researching. When we really think of ourselves, maybe not as a news company, but as a research company, we do the research on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, to read all the content out there on any given issue and identify primary sources and surface the information that is coming from the horse's mouth instead of from another pundit, another commentator, another thought leader, quote unquote. And so what that looks like, for example, is say there's a Supreme Court case, right? Or there is a bill of Congress, right? Or there is an announcement by the central bank, right? The Fed, or something of that caliber. It could be American focused, or it could be also international. It could be another country making an announcement. We're not going to, tell you stories about how to feel. We're actually going to really, really solidify, what is our contribution? Our contribution is to discover the primary sort of ground truth around the issue and to present it to you, citing sources that are 80% of the time primary sources. So when you get a text from us, it isn't long. It's intentionally very, very short. We only text once a day. And it's the most concise and sort of executive summary of the issues of the last 24 hours that have perspired around the world that are changing the human condition. And when you want to learn more, because we always cite our sources, 80% of the time, we're not taking you to another news pundit. When you click on the link, it actually is going to take you directly to the Supreme Court opinion, to the Bill of Congress bill. Many times it's actual PDFs, the official government, central bank, international announcements that are the horse's mouth, right? And there really aren't any news, at least mass news sources today, that even cite their sources publicly,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Talks about economy all the time. And we all know where it comes from. It comes from the Census Bureau, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, from the Fed. Like, we all know where this comes from. But CNBC talks about it as if they discovered it, and as if it's like, as if you don't deserve to know. You're too much of a kid to know, and it's disrespectful, right? It's disrespectful of the American audience that should be able to read a primary document, should be able to read a PDF and just figure it out for themselves. So we do that. We do the primary source in almost religious way. We focus on primary sources, the truth that comes from primary sources, and also surfacing that to the reader so they're able to see this and interact directly with the ground truth, interact directly with the horse's mouth. Because why would you do anything else? That's what the facts are. That's what the news is. Anything above that is commentary, which we don't do.
So no commentary, no opinions, no after the news kind of thing. So the question then becomes, because listen, I love it. I think most people, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like, you should read that document and understand what it says. I can't tell you how many times I've been curious of why something, is. And look, folks, if someone can explain to you pork belly spending, and then you can get to understand that in a document, we'll all march on someplace and try to find a way in. But so how do you then? I guess the next part to this is, those other media sources that we're talking about. What's up, Kitty? Those other media sources that we're talking about and their revenue generating processes. How do you stay clear of, let's be honest, money corrupts. We all want it, but the reality of it is if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So how do you keep from falling into that realm?
Totally. I mean, it's also a very obvious answer that it seems like it's been forgotten because we are so used to being the product. We're so used to being the product that is commoditized, whose at least our attention is commoditized, and passed around advertiser, sponsor, tech platform, social media platform, website, retargeting, TikTok. We're used to getting things for free, but losing everything in the process, losing our privacy, losing our peace of mind, losing our attention, losing in many ways like our own balance, right? It's a very disbalancing experience being a product of a larger company. And so to me, it's a very fundamental, very obvious choice. You know, who your client is, like who your customer is, that's who you optimize for. And the only way to make news for people, for the everyday American, is to have them as the customer and refuse anyone else's money. So we could potentially make a lot more money if we were to do advertisements, right?
Sure,
In
yeah.
fact, we've been approached with a lot of advertisers saying, "Hey, can we, include this topic?" And we're like, "Absolutely not. We refuse advertiser revenue. We refuse sponsor revenue. We refuse any external pressure, whether it's an investor. We also refuse investments.
Wow.
It's an investor, a sponsor, an advertiser, a tech platform of any sort. We refuse that revenue because our North Star goal is very clear. It's to serve the user. And the only way to serve the user is to only accept revenue from the user. Because that's, in business terms, in a capitalist world, that's who you become, that's who you optimize around.
Right.
So
Absolutely. It's your shareholder.
and for us, that's the most important thing. So in our case, the way we monetize is completely aligned with what we believe in, which is news that puts the reader first. So after a brief free trial, because we give everyone the chance to see the power of facts and see what we do for free, completely risk free, we charge a few dollars. We are intentionally very, very affordable because we want this to be a solution for the everyday person, not just for the professional elite, not just for corporate sponsored teams, but for the everyday person, whether they're in a bar, in a boardroom, or driving a cab. And that's really important to us. Having the power of facts, the power to make up your own mind, is accessible to every single person in the United States. And so it's just a few dollars a month, and we don't do annual contracts, and we don't do any sort of lock-in. You tell us you want to stop. You don't even need to remember accounts or passwords. It's done. All you have to do is text stop, and we don't hold you. We don't try to trap people. And you know, I would say anyone in America can afford us, even if you're a student.
I love that idea. So, I mean, bro, you have no. So then, who did you front this out of your own pocket to get it going? I mean, because
Yeah,
listen, I bring that up because, and Kira, I know you've probably heard this 1.5 billion times, and I'll be 1.001 billion. How old are you?
I actually don't believe in sharing my age publicly.
Okay, well, you're already on a cover of 30 under 30, so you can stay that. So I know you're under that. Like you've already been there. We can all see that. So okay, so you ain't got to tell me, but I mean the reality of it is you're a very successful, driven person. I love that fact. As I looked into you, there is nothing cooler in the world to me than somebody who can go, that's where I want to go, and that's who I want to be, and that's what I want to do. So you fronted this whole piece on your own.
Yeah,
So
it's
what
complete.
what was it then that you personally, as Kira said, I see this because we can talk about, news is BS and clickbaits and all those kind of things. And I'll be the first to say it's interesting, but I also know that who was it? Ben Franklin used to buy newspapers and pen under fake names to talk bad about other candidates that he didn't want to see get elected. They did that stuff all the way back in the 1700s. They were doing it. So it's not new that media is being controlled by money and information controlled by money. What was it for you as an individual in your heart that said, you know what? I gotta try to fix this. I gotta try to do something.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like, yeah, this is an entirely bootstrapped operation on purpose. We refuse investor capital just as much as we refuse advertiser revenue because it undermines the purity, the integrity of our mission. There are no other incentives that we want to introduce, whether they're profit oriented, return oriented, or more outwardly biased and sensationalism oriented, as in the case with sponsors and advertisers. So it was very important for me to run this operation with complete independence, right? And it was an obvious decision for me because I wish I did this earlier, right? Like I wish we did this before 2016, because I feel like in 2016 America entered a civil war, and
What do
we're
you mean?
still in it. I feel like to a great degree, um, the year 2015, the year 2016, maybe 2017, um, I remember I'm recollecting a very specific moment in time where the Oxford Dictionary named the word of the year as post-truth, which is post-truth is, as in the case of postmodern, is a reality that exists after people valued truth and they no longer value truth. So that happened around that era, that time. And I feel like America has become hyper polarized. No matter which side you're on, the right side, the left side, the upside, the downside, people have felt very divided. And people felt very disenfranchised and unheard on all the sides, right? Not on just one side or the winning side or the losing side. Politically, there was a real sense of, strife. And to me, that always looked like artificial strife because we, in America, have a lot more to be to bond around and a lot more in common than we have apart. But there is almost this artificial partisan divide that exists that's driving people into hyperpolarization. And when I think of America right now, I mean, right now it's hard for us to tell because we're living in through it. But I think our children and our grandchildren are going to read this in history books as the Civil War of the 2020s, right? Where there was a cultural,
Interesting.
social, and political divide that made the country very heated, for no really good reason because we're safe and we're abundant. There is no need for this internal conflict. Um, but observing this and observing the fact that you can no longer have political conversations with your friends, you can no longer talk about politics in a bar. It's taboo and it's something that leads to real frustration, real conflict. This reality of unnecessary, artificial hyperpolarization is very unfortunate, and it doesn't have to be this way. So, for me personally, I've always been very interested in keeping up with the world. I grew up between the two loudest conflicts of our time, between Ukraine and Israel, right? So I spent my life there and seeing the high stakes of information
Hold on.
conflict,
You spent your life in Israel or Ukraine?
both.
Oh, really? Like you live between the two countries?
So I was born and raised and spent a little bit over a decade of my first decade of my life in Ukraine, and then I spent almost a decade in Israel before coming to the United States.
Goodness gracious, brother!
So I've
You
seen the,
you you
this.
watch conflict in a different way than even most combat veterans don't understand. The only thing missing for you was to move to the south side of Chicago or Baltimore City. That's the only thing you were missing. Goodness gracious!
I spent 4 years on the south side of Chicago.
shut, shut the hell up! No, you did not,
Yeah, Hyde Park.
bro. You were just glutton. Somebody was glutton for punishment for you. Goodness gracious!
Well, all
How
I mean
you got
to say
you got
is,
good hand you got good hands, Kira? I gotta ask. Like you living in all those places, you got good hands?
oh yeah,
I mean,
oh
you gotta have some good hands. If you're telling me Ukraine, Israel, and 4 years in the south side of Chicago, you better have some good hands there, young man.
oh
Good
yeah,
Lord.
I got fast feet. But,
Me.
I mean to say all this is I've seen the stakes of misinformation. I've seen the stakes of information conflict, and seeing that unfold again for unnecessary reasons, artificial reasons in America makes me very upset, makes me very sad. And I don't want to see that repetition. I don't want to see another Russian propaganda campaign unfold. I don't want to see the division that the Middle East has, lived in for decades. We don't need to have this in America. We are abundant, prosperous, you know, very, very peaceful. Like there is no need for all the strife. And so I think a lot of this division that I keep mentioning is artificial is driven by the echo chambering news narrative that exists in the news media world, right? Because different sides of culture, society, politics are told their own stories and are convinced of their stories repeatedly in a way that drives them apart, drives them to isolation and to sometimes to delusion, to and I just wouldn't like that to happen. I wouldn't like America to go through what I've seen other countries go through. So for me, that was the moment of urgency and like, let's build something that can be a tool for making up your own mind across the political spectrum, the income spectrum, the geographic spectrum, the age spectrum, and that we pride ourselves profoundly on the fact that we have radical Republicans, radical Democrats, every side of the political, social, cultural, economic affiliation using the same platform and leveraging the same fact base to make up their own mind, right? Because we aren't suggestive of what opinion or what feeling you should have about the news. And it's just it's surprising to me that that I had to build this. Like, why didn't this exist before me? Why didn't this exist, in your generation? Why is this a new idea? It isn't, and it shouldn't be. And so, that was the feeling of urgency and agitation that I felt starting this company, and that continues to drive me because we're seeing the impact on scale, and it's very positive.
So then, going back to how the messages come through from it, because I got to tell you again, Kira, I'm absolutely impressed by you as a person and the willingness to step forward in this. This is such a thing that I can't even imagine the difficulty in in putting this together. And I've actually you got the brain working overtime on wanting to ask so many different questions. But the first one is how do there is so much going on in the world every day and so many things that most people, and you see it every so often pop up on social media. Hey, while you were worrying about fill in the blank, you didn't realize that they slid this through in Congress. While you were worrying about, that uh, what's her name? I can't even think of her name in the Travis Kelsey and whatever the hell her name is. I can't think of the singer's name. Taylor Swift. While you were worrying about Taylor Swift at a football game, what you didn't realize was this was going on, and they kept it out of your face. You know, how do you make that determination? Because there is so many truly important things going on that we're not talking about, that we're not hearing about. Like I promise you, most people have no idea that starting 1 January, there are no more environmental tax credits that you can get. There is no more um, Energy Star. There is no more energy efficiency credits. There's none of those things exist in your taxes anymore. And most people don't realize it because they hated on the big beautiful bill for whatever reason, or they loved it for whatever reason. But none of them have any idea that money was taken out of your pocket when you went for all these environmental things. How do you determine what you're going to put in there, though, to tell people?
Totally. So your question is, how do we determine what is world changing? Because
Exactly.
what we focus on is not your hyper local news or your niche specific news. Like if you're interested in the technology industry or if you're interested in the healthcare industry, we're not the right place for like niche interests, right? There are much better places to get that information. There are newsletters, there's blogs, there's tons of content. We're also not really your hyper local, what happened in the bar nearby type of source. What we focus on, and this is really important for us, we focus on is world-changing news, right? And so the question that we answer every day is, does this news item, does this event, occasion, this happening, does it change the world? And for us, that has a scale criteria. And this isn't a judgment that is made by some editor, as in the case for a lot of other publications. It's made by a system and a model that we subscribe to, and we call it it's really just the utilitarian model, which is how much does this change the lives of how many people, right? So it's really just a two-sided question. And when we measure, the scale, we're looking not at hundreds of people, not at thousands. We're looking at hundreds of thousands and millions of people. That level of scale is going to affect the lives of states, populations, sub-communities, races. So going to change the lives of large groups of people. And when you talk about, changes in life, talking about the differences or the changes in your freedom, your ability to choose, your ability to purchase, your ability to feel safe, right? So it's like safety, security, freedom, optionality. How much are those things changing, right? And they're changing substantially, as you mentioned, with the big beautiful bill. They're also changing substantially with the tariff games that the U.S. is playing with other countries. It's also changing
Oh, yes.
substantially with Thailand and Cambodia going to war, right? And so all
How
of
many
these.
people have no idea that's even happening? How many Americans have 0.0 idea that Cambodia and Thailand have been at it for a couple years now, almost, hasn't it?
It's been very tense, but it's been heating up the last few months intensely. And
Okay.
like this past week, I think it was this past week, they started bombing. So it went from an initial heating up over the border over the last few months. Then Trump brokered a peace deal somehow, and now they've broken the deal and started bombing each other. And it's been very frustrating. It's been very, very difficult, and we live in a globalized world. None of this is in isolation, right? If there's maybe a local car accident in Bangladesh, sure, that doesn't affect you, but the tariff response between China and Europe affects your options, affects your ability to your household in America. It does, right? The conflict with Ukraine and Russia affects the life of Europeans at scale. It also affects gas prices, not to mention, right? And so we live in a globalized world where things are very much interconnected. And so we believe that everyone at this point, we're global citizens. We serve the global citizen. If you're someone who doesn't care about the world, which I can understand and accept, we're probably not a service for you. And you should go to that bar that has that talking head on TV, and you'll get news as entertainment. But if you're someone who cares, who gives a damn and wants to be part of the conversation, and wants to understand and make decisions that are not in isolation of reality, then and that's what we built for. And you are the person we're looking to serve.
And Cody has a very important question for you. She said, and listen, folks, if you're just joining us, make sure you give this a like, share, follow, all those things. Cody wants to know, does your news consider environmental and does it consider our environment and the effects on land and animals, or is it more human related?
No, absolutely. I mean, land and animals are critical to the ecosystem of the world that we live in. And so if it changes, the human condition, we are looking at it. And so that includes healthcare, environments, vaccination rates, unemployment, employment, layoffs, economic indicators, politics, culture, military updates, deals between countries, deals between states, like large scale protests. All of this matters, and all of this is in scope. So if it changes the world, it's on our radar. And then we've prioritized the most world changing news on a daily basis. And so you know you might not get the whole coverage on a single day, but because this is a daily experience and it takes you about 30 seconds to read our text each weekday morning, you know, as an ongoing habit, you're going to know everything that's going on. You're going to be very much in the loop. You're going to feel more informed than you have ever been. And it's including all these different realms, from technology and science to peace and war, to politics and culture, to society and economic indicators. So all those things are in scope, including land and animals, Cody.
You're good, Cody. We got our last call coming up here, folks. And for this week's last call, it's brought to you by the Self Hospitality Collective. For the ones who never sit down, this episode is sponsored by something powerful, especially for those of you in the hospitality world. If you're a restaurant owner, a hotel manager, or someone constantly on the move, taking care of others when the last time you took care of yourself, that's the mission behind the Self Hospitality Collective, a growing community helping hospitality leaders stop grinding and start living. They're creating something called the Rest Room, a short guided experience that gives hospitality professionals a rare moment to breathe, rest, and reconnect with themselves. No fluff, no toxic positivity, just space to be human again. If you're tired of burnout culture, this is the wake up call. Visit the selfhospitalitycollective.com to join the free community and start putting yourself back on your priority list. God, I can't talk today. Get yourself back on your own priority list. The Self Hospitality Collective, because service starts with self. There you go. Look, Cody, that's you. Like, you could go hang out. Oh, and this is important. They're going to listen, they show up every week. You can have some cheap viewers also, though, Kira, through streamboo.com. These people show up every week. I laugh at it because it's like, because we all want cheap viewers. It's just so funny. So where do we see this entire thing with? And again, folks, start jumping on informed.now. Take the free trial. The worst you're going to get is news that you're going to go, well, damn, I didn't know that. That's the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to get a text message and you're going to go, damn, I didn't realize that was going on. And you're going to learn something. It could happen. You could put a wrinkle in your brain. You could get a little bit smarter. It could happen. I don't want to be the person that took away from a password that you were trying to remember, because we've all got too many of them to remember now. But what is our goal here moving to the next steps? I know you're saying like, hey, we're going to get these texts. Are you guys talking about like, hey, a daily shot on Instagram that like, hey, we do one post of an important news article, or LinkedIn or something like that, where it's that other level of, boom, here it is, this one thing?
Yeah. Well, we really are continuing to double down on our mission to bring news without noise in a most accessible way to the everyday American. And so we aren't focused on coming up with, many new formats or, enriching the media. We're looking to keep the media very, very minimalist. There's no images, there's no videos, there's no audios. There's just, a plain neutral text message that is always the same length, roughly, and is always very, very brief. It takes 30 seconds to read. So for us, a really big focus is to continue to identify and find our people, folks who want to be mindful about their media consumption and who want to be minimalist in their consumption of news. Instead of reading 2 times or 3 times the news to figure out where you stand, you can read news once. And you can read news that actually informs you and not news that drains you.
What was today's news?
That's a good question. I'll tell you.
I'm curious now. While you're looking at, do you remember what yesterday's was?
Yeah. I mean, this is all fresh. I'm just, pulling up the exact specifics. So, there's a couple of things in mind. I'm looking at our text, and I'm seeing international news, seeing, economic news. I'm seeing kind of American policy news, seeing some research. Sometimes there are days when nothing, this is rare, but it happens, when nothing hits the bar of like being world changing. But there's a lot of news, a lot of noise, a lot of stuff going on, but nothing that warrants us bringing it to our readers. And so in those days, we actually focus on like latest breaking research that describes the world from a perspective of like what is going on right now almost from like a research perspective more than news perspective. And so I'm looking at our top items that are this morning. So number one is Australia enforces world's first restriction on users under 16 years old across 10 social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, X, YouTube, Twitch, and Reddit. This is a historic event, the first country in the world to introduce a restriction, not to talk about it, but to actually do it. And I think we'll see more countries follow suit. So that's my commentary, but the brevity of that message is literally what's written. The second item is data from a researcher called GasBuddy that shows that U.S. gas prices dropped to a multi-year low at $2.9 per gallon, which is a 6% drop from November, with some stations now below $2, as falling crude and weaker seasonal demand push prices down. So this is more of like an economic indicator item. And obviously you can read articles about this, you can read a lot about this, but this is the crux of the issue. And now you know what's going on without, reading for hours. I'll mention maybe, one more, maybe like
Yeah, please. I find it fascinating that the Australia one, I saw that on Big Media today. That was a big article on Big Media today. And but I didn't hear anything about the gas, which to me, like you said, it's an economic indicator there that gas prices are falling down. Which listen, I'm so happy to see that. I still remember when Katrina hit and they were like, "Oh, it's just for now. It's just for now," and then those prices have never gone down. So
Yeah.
I've I try to explain this to people all the time. Prices don't go down, folks. Once they have your money and they know you're willing to pay it, prices don't go down. So what's next for you, Kira? I mean, this is absolutely fascinating to me. Everything about this in that you're honing in. Are you going to find News 360 and rebirth it for me?
On the contrary, News 360 is similar to a couple of other news aggregators where they essentially, find all the articles and show them to you about a given issue, right? What the left side is saying, what the right side is saying. And that's a good solution for news junkies, which are a very small minority of the world, where people have so much free time and they enjoy reading news so much, they're willing to read not 1x, but 2x and 3x and 4x the news. And they're willing to read, many articles about the same issue. The everyday American has no time, not even close. They're busy, they are time conscious, and we want to be able to give them news that you can read once, and that news that doesn't have color, doesn't have the blue or the red stint, right? It's like what essentially News 360 is, according to your description, is that you read the blue side, you read the red side, and then you figure out where your purple is. With
Yes,
us,
where the truth is, it's somewhere in between.
right?
Yeah, I loved it for that fact that it gave me the opportunity to kind of go where one was like it was a horrible thing and the other one was like it was amazing. Then I can figure out in the middle like, oh, it was okay. It was just an
Yeah.
okay thing.
And I think I hereby diagnose you as a news junkie if you made the time to actually do that, right? And a lot of people don't have that time. And
Uh,
we're looking to give a tool to let you read news that has no color, that has no red or blue, that has no color at all, that you can read just once and feel informed without being influenced.
Listen, brother, I think everything you're doing, and I would say you're probably right. I'm a little bit of a news junkie, only because I don't like to not know. Like I'm a more of an information junkie. Like I like not know. I don't like to not know. Like I hate it when somebody says to me like, "Psh, you didn't know that, son of a bitch. I need to go find out now because I think maybe you're wrong. How could this possibly be?" And it's even worse when I read it and I'm like, damn it, they're right, and I should have known this thing. I like being informed. I don't need to be the smartest man in the room, but I need to be one of the most well informed.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
I
And
think
that's
that's
what it sounds like you guys are shooting for. It's not you're not looking to make somebody the smartest to the left or the smartest to the right. You just want to make sure people are the most well informed in the room. Am I understanding it right?
I mean, that's exactly right. We want to give you the tools to be informed without being influenced. to be informed without being overwhelmed, to be informed without being manipulated in the process, and to be informed without being drained.
Ugh. That's the worst is when you watch the news and you almost feel like like you really feel like you're just emotionally or mentally just like fatigued by somebody yelling. It's like everybody sounds like Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, where everything is just yelling about everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of sensationalizing and screaming, right? The news is screaming at you most of the time and is making you feel either fear or anger, and it's trying to trigger emotional responses so that they can, keep you reading, keep you entertained, keep you hostage.
I,
And we don't
I
believe in
love
that.
that. Well, I'll tell you, you've definitely educated me there, good sir, because I never would have thought about when you watch news that's like free TV, like regular network television, that it's not really free. You're the you're the commodity that they're after in this. You're the
Exactly.
commodity that they're pushing for. I never thought about it like that, but it makes perfect sense to me in that realm. Um, Anything you got coming up here anytime soon? Some stuff people should know about, things that are happening.
I mean, we're continuing to grow and to attract, our people. We're not looking to be a solution for everybody. We're looking to be a solution for people who need us, who are looking for us, and we're very reassured by, the support we've been receiving by people who believe that, news should be pure and that news shouldn't manipulate you. And so, we're looking for our folks, and we're continuing to focus on that. Um, I don't know if there's a big announcement coming up. We're just really going steady and focused on our work.
When's your TED talk?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. I am looking at speaking. I'm receiving some invitations from different regional TED Talks, and I would love to sort of share the story of our observation and
I think it
what
would be
we're
amazing.
after here. I would love to share the mission with more people.
We'll get you a couple of TEDx's, and then they get you into like a legit TED talk. Just recently learned how all these TED things work. Well, look, folks, as I always say, if you're finding Kira through us or us through Kira, make sure you're giving it a like, share, or follow. You can find him on Instagram. You can find him on LinkedIn. Definitely take a look at informed.now. See what they've got going on. Take that free trial. Stop being cheap. It's free. See what it's all about. I know you're out there, Nate. Just take a look at it. Make sure you join us every week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week is going to be our last show for the year and going into the next year because uh, Christmas Eve is on a Wednesday and New Year's Eve is on a Wednesday this year. So we're gonna be skipping two of them in a row, folks. So I know you're gonna miss me. And I don't go out on New Year's Eve because I don't do amateur night. I'm well beyond those kind of things. But make sure you're joining us next week with Samantha Shaw. She's an integrative health practitioner dedicated to helping people achieve whole body wellness. So we're going to see what that's all about. That's right up Cody's alley right there. She gets it. She does this thing. I always jack up the name. It's called Trans and Dance. She does all this like woo woo stuff. And she runs Animal Tinder. And she's going to yell at me in a minute if she's still listening because that's what I call it. She actually runs like an environmental group. This is right up your alley, Kira. What she does. She runs like an environmental thing where they pick one animal and they spend time to work with that one animal in that one area till they achieve a goal. And then they move on to another one instead of trying to be like, hey, World Wildlife Foundation, we're going to work with everything. And then it really doesn't achieve. She did one with elephants where like it was like literally an elephant's Harry and Sally and got them back together. So it's pretty interesting. Now we're getting ready to log off here, and don't log off on me afterwards because I know you've already inundated yourself with the over 300 episodes of this show, so you know everything that's going to go on. But as a reminder, the guest always gets the final word here. So what is our final word tonight? Don't log off on me. We just need to talk for just a moment. What's the final word tonight?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for welcoming me on your show. It's been fun. It's been delightful. I really appreciate it. And if there are media minimalists, news minimalists out there that are inspired by a mission, there's a even more direct way that you can join us, which is just if you go to get.informed.now, we'll take you straight to the sign up and to that free trial that we're offering anyone who's listening. And it would be great to get your feedback, get your thoughts, get your thought partnership, and see if what we're doing resonates with you. And if you want to have the power of facts restored.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.